guys, bad start. We are here in Scotland. We just landed a couple of hours ago from London. We tried the drone, Mavic 2 Pro. First flight over the water. I don't know what happened. The drone just dropped. It started to rotate on its axis, dropped into water down there. So really bad start. First day of content creation. So now my friend Joe went to pick up his wetsuit. So he's just trying to go and find it. It's gone. Literally 10 seconds in the air. That's Joe coming with the wetsuit. Browsing for Mavic Pros in the Atlantic. Dude.
Flight 1.
10 seconds of flight.
The last flight. Oh my god. Probably, it's a good way to break in anyway.
Not for you.
I mean, it was far, right? Like we're talking...
It's 90 meters, he says.
No one knows what happened. I flew for 10 seconds and it's in a lock. We haven't even started the trip. We're not even where we're supposed to be.
Okay.
Hey, it's a great start for it. It's a top start.
Welcome to Scotland. Okay, this is happening. This is happening. Yeah, go straight. Yeah, more or less that way, yeah. But yeah, welcome to the drone life. I hope we're gonna make some views out of this. I actually filmed a few seconds before the crash, so I'm re-watching the clip and trying to understand where it dropped. Woohoo! Yeah! We found it! It's still on! Unbelievable! Yes! Let's have a look at it. Guys, the winner is... No, come on, dude. Serious.
I cannot believe it. Like, what the f***?
That was, well, kind of fun. Not in the beginning.
I cannot believe we found it. I don't know how we managed that. That's crazy.
It's here, guys. Now we're gonna let it dry. Just try again, maybe tomorrow.
Do you think it's gonna work? Are you optimistic?
Yeah.
Yeah, alright.
We'll always be positive.
Trying up the baby. Probably not a good idea for health and safety, but you know, it is what it is.
That was supposed to be yesterday vlog intro, but the drone failed, or someone failed to fly the drone. So it dropped in the water. This is a new video. We're gonna give you some tips on how to shoot handheld. Hopefully it's gonna be helpful. So
tips on how to fly a drone coming soon. Coming soon
by Joe. What I wanted to share, guys, is that whatever you're gonna hear in this vlog is not invented by me. We haven't created anything. These are techniques used by cinematographers for years. YouTubers didn't really create anything. Just keep it in mind. We're just giving you what we're learning through the experience. As Joe is still warming up, run Forrest, run! That's the funniest thing I've ever seen. We're actually waiting for the right light to start shooting the B-roll. I want to tell you how I was thinking to split this vlog basically. So I'm gonna start with some technological related tips, which are actually related to the gear you're using. First of all, it's easier to get smooth handheld shots if you're using a wide lens. In my case, I'm using a 16-35. When you use a wider field of views, the shakiness of the camera and the lens is just less visible. If you're using a 70-200, for example, as soon as you move your hand, you will notice that shake in your image. That's the first tip related to your gear. Use a wide lens. You can go from 10 to 16 to 18, 20. That's still a good focal range. But then we need to introduce also the IBIS, which is the in-body stabilization. So certain cameras and lenses come with internal stabilization and certain don't. In our case today, we are using a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K and 6K Pro with Canon lenses, and either the cameras and the lenses don't have in-body stabilization. So that's when things come a bit trickier, because we really need to be steady. But if you have the option, turn the stabilization on. For example, if you had the stabilization in your 70-200 lens, you could achieve steadier shot than using a 16 to 35 without stabilization. So stabilization on either the camera and the lens if you can. Next is to make your gear a bit heavier. The Blackmagic cameras are very light, especially the two we are using today. And when you have light gear, it's just more difficult to actually keep it steady. So what we do is to rig it up, and we build a cage around the camera. We put some handles, the microphone. I'm gonna show you the other setup I'm filming myself with. I also have a V-mount and V-mount batteries. It just makes it heavier, and the gravity just helps you to keep the camera steadier. Important for me are handles. Usually the cages come with a top handle. This is actually a top handle which I mounted to the side, but we're gonna get into that later because that's gonna help me to keep the camera even steadier. Okay, so you can have it to the top, or you can mount it wherever you want around this cage. It's like a Lego thing, so you can literally build it custom. Then I'm sure you heard this tip many times, which is the slow motion. If you have slow motion in your camera, put it on, go to 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second. So in post-production, you have the option to slow down your material. When you film in slow motion, you're gonna have exactly the same shakiness of when you film in 24 frames per second. But the benefit of that is that in post-production, you can slow down your material, your footage, up to 4, 5, 6 times. And by slowing down the material, the shakiness will be less visible. So it's a very simple trick used by many cinematographers, videographers and YouTubers, but actually it works, and it gives that cinematic look to your videos as well. Now, the other category of tips I want to share with you guys is the physical kind of related tips. And we start by saying that if you have more muscle, if you have a nice build, that's definitely going to help you to hold the camera, especially for long range of time. So sometimes you are on a shoot for 8-10 hours, and well, a bit of muscle don't hurt, and actually, yeah, it will help you to support your camera in a better way and have steadier shots throughout the whole shoot. So hit the gym and build some guns right there. That's gonna help you. Having 2 hand grips, that's very helpful too. I hold my camera with 2 hands, so don't go around like this, because that's when the shakiness comes in, but hold the camera with 2 hands. That's why I put the side handle, as I mentioned before. Certain cameras like Sony's are very small, and it's quite hard to keep it steady also because they're very light. So what I try to do is to expand the camera more or less as wide as my shoulders, and that gives me a better and more solid grip. With the grip here, you can do a couple of things. You can have one hand on the lens, and that will help you with the focus as well if you need to change the focus, and the other hand grip on the camera. The second option is to have both hands on the sides of the camera. This is also matched by the position of my elbows. As you can see, I keep my elbows very close to my chest, actually tucked in, so there's no movement there. They're not, flying around. Sometimes I actually detach the elbows from the body, but then again, we're gonna talk about that later. But usually for a steadier shot, this is what I do. When you take handheld shots, you want to think about the camera as an extension of your body, of your limbs, okay? So everything moves together in harmony, basically. And what I do, it's not just moving the camera up or down, tilting it and panning it, but I try to move the whole body with the camera. For example, if I want to pan from left to right, I'm actually rotating my hips. So I keep the camera steady, shoulder facing in the same direction, elbows tucked in, and I just rotate my hips. In that way I can go on a horizontal straight line without shaking too much, going up and down. I'm applying the same principle when I try to achieve a forward or backward dolly shot. What I do if I want a dolly shot, I'm gonna step backward a second, is to start with my body leaning backward, okay? Then I start moving forward with my legs, so I'm moving my legs forward, and as I reach the maximum leaning in the front, I start to extend my arms. So that's what I do. And if I do backward, camera is moving back, and then my body keeps rocking back. In this way I have a wider range as well of filming, instead of just doing this with my hands. Now when I reach the limit of extension here, what I do, and again, this has not been invented by any YouTuber, guys, it's been there for forever, is to kind of let my body fall, so I get an extra second of video, and if I slow it down, that's gonna be up to another 3 or 4 seconds. Okay, so basically I keep rocking forward, and then I pretend I'm falling, and at the last second I just put the foot in front of my body just to stop the fall. But yeah, I can still achieve an extra second of video. If you want to follow someone or anticipate someone, so facing the subject and walking backward, what you can do is what is called ninja walk, which is quite famous for gimbal movements as well. Instead of stepping on the ground, you roll on your feet, you go heel to toe, and you try to absorb the shock through your knees, your hips, and the whole leg, like this. All right, so it's gonna look a bit stupid like Joe, but that's but that's the kind of walk you want to get. Heel toe, and try to again keep the elbows close to the trunk of your body, and yeah, just try to make it as smooth as you can. Before starting my handheld clip, usually I think to be a sniper. That really helps me out for a couple of reasons. First of all, the breathing, and in particular, if you keep the elbows close to your chest, any breath you take will make the camera shake, so it will make the camera go up and down, and different other movements. I press rec and I hold the breath for 10-15 seconds until I finish recording. So that's another thing I can do with my body. It's a physical tip. Related to snipers as well is sometimes, especially when I'm using 70-200 lenses, I lay down and I use the camera and the lens as a rifle. So I literally use the elbows again. I lay the elbows on the sand, on the ground, hold the lens with one hand and the other hand as a solid grip on the camera. Right, a few tricks for your handheld shooting as well. Sometimes I use rods. These are literally a couple of tubes, aluminum tubes, carbon fiber tubes, whatever, different materials that you can put under your camera and attach V-mount batteries and other accessories. Okay, sometimes these tubes are quite long. They can reach a length also of 30 centimeters, and they stick out of your camera, so that could be helpful to use the cameras on shoulder, as a shoulder rig. Literally my camera will be there and the rods will be laying on my shoulder. So if you have them, that's another thing you can use. This is gonna sound silly, but a very good tip is to just do gentle movements. Very simple, very slow, gentle movements. Instead of running around the place or chasing your character as a crazy man, just do slow movements instead. As I mentioned before, maybe just rock your body, do some panning, and to enhance the movement, usually you can put something in the foreground. So if you have an object or something from the environment in front of your lens, that's gonna give you more parallax effect, a bigger sense of perspective as well, and it's just going to accentuate your movement. And if you are a self-shooter and you can direct your character or just talk to the director of the shoot, what I usually do is to choose a movement of camera. So for example, again, I want to circle around my subject, so I go from left to right. I ask my subject to move on the other direction, and that's again a way to accentuate the movement without really moving the camera too much, so avoiding the shakiness of the camera. Movement wise, I usually repeat the same movement 2 or 3, 4 times just to make sure I get that movement right. And usually the last clip I shoot is the good one because I kind of practice, so I've got the rhythm. So if I want a tracking shot from left to right, I just do the same movement 3 or 4 times. Okay, question you guys are going to ask: how do you focus while you do handheld shooting as you're moving and so on? Well, again, there's something depending on the gear and the style of videos you want to film. So if you have autofocus and the type of clip you want to film allows you to use the autofocus, well, then turn it on. But I'm one of those people that really advise to shoot manual because you have full control of the image in all the aspects. That's more tricky, of course, when you do handheld, especially when you're moving. So once again, slow movements help, and in that case I keep one hand on the lens, on the focus ring, and one on the side of the camera body. If I want to reproduce a tiny dolly shot, dolly movement, I'm moving forward, and as I move I keep changing the focus with my 2 fingers of my hand here. Okay, that's what I do. Another simple way is just to keep the same distance from your subject and the lens. And for example, if you're moving around your subject, just make sure you stay away from the subject at the same distance. That's the same thing you can do with a gimbal as well, same tips. Even better, nowadays you can find some cages or cameras with a follow focus system. The follow focus system comes with a ring that goes around the lens, which is connected to a motor. The motor is connected to a device, a controller on the handle, so you can control the focus directly with your fingers without moving your hand, and that's very helpful. And actually you can go and check my previous video I've done on the Joe Crane 2S on how to focus manually on a gimbal. Go and check it out. These were a bit of tips. I shoot some B-roll with Joe, and I'm gonna show you how I apply the tips I just gave you on real clips.